Hello and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be starting our House predictions for the 2022 midterm elections. We only have a few House maps outstanding right now in New York, which is probably going to be filled in within a day or so, and then New Hampshire. So I figured we'll start doing the House predictions by region. That way we're not really impacted by these two maps being outstanding. And also, it gives me more time to talk in detail about the various nuances of each district, because some districts have certain partisan leans that are often bucked during elections and incumbents and so on and so forth. So for the sake of being able to cover everything more thoroughly, I wanted to divide the U.S. up into regions. So this video will be the House predictions for the Northwest, and then so on and so forth for the other regions of the country. Now, I want to do a set of House predictions in May to June, which would be now, and we'll fill out all of these regions, and then we'll do another set in October, so kind of giving us enough time to see the dynamics of the races change and things like that. So stay tuned for that, and if you want more content like this, more election predictions and analysis, and you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing down below and liking this video. So let's get straight into it. First, we're going to take a look at the generic ballot. The generic ballot currently still has the Republicans up ahead by 2.4% nationally. Republicans normally overperform their polling in general elections, so I wouldn't be surprised if this number is increased. Now, what's interesting to note is that this number has been steady even after the Roe v. Wade leaked Supreme Court draft, which many people thought would damage the Republicans nationwide. But according to the generic ballot, there hasn't really been much of a shift. And if we look at the polling for other midterm races, it's really been relatively the same. Now, if we take a look at the House maps now, I've already filled out some of the safe states, or the safe districts rather, for this map. Of course, the ones that are blank are not necessarily not safe, but I do want to talk about them because there are some nuances to them. Of course, we have the new district out of Minnesota. Minnesota's first, which is R+10 now. I could have filled that in before, honestly. This will probably be a safe district this time around, just given the national environment. This district, Montana's first, could be competitive in a blue wave year. It's only R+10 because it encompasses regions of Missoula and other liberal areas in Montana. So it's basically this section. So you have parts of Helena, less red than this section of the state. So that's why one is R+30 and one's only R+10. So this is an open seat. There's a non-incumbent, but I still think given the environment, this is going to be a safe seat for the Republicans. So we have 6-6 right now for the Northwest. Now, taking a look at the state of Wyoming, it's not that this state isn't necessarily safe, but I want to take a look at the Republican primary because you have incumbent Representative Liz Cheney, who voted to impeach Donald Trump. Her polling sank in the state of Wyoming. Her approval sank. She won her last election with 68% of the vote to 24 by 44 points. This is one of the reddest districts in the entire country. Wyoming is the reddest state in the entire country by margin. But if we take a look at the polling, though, her opponents seem to be sort of splitting the vote here to where we have the latest poll. Again, this is only from July of 2021, so nearly a year ago. We don't really have much solid polling on this, but Liz Cheney is actually ahead by a few points against her other opponents. Now, this may change, but I still think even if she is the nominee, it's going to be a safe Republican seat. Even if you have a number of Republicans voting for the Democrat or voting for third parties, I still think at the end of the day, Wyoming's going to be safe because it's Wyoming. So we have 7-6 right now. We'll take a look at the state of Oregon. Now, Oregon is really interesting because the Democrats gerrymandered this state, but in a way they also made their districts less blue. If we take a look at the Oregon lines, these districts, these three districts here, are either likely or lean Democrat. So you have, well, two likely and you have a lean Democratic seat. We'll start off with Oregon's 5th. Now, Kurt Schrader is a pretty moderate Democrat. Some people have compared him to the Joe Manchin of the House, although I don't think he's really that conservative. But his district is only D+3. And if we take a look at the presidential election results out of Oregon, Kurt Schrader won his district by a little bit under 10 points. So that's pretty impressive. But also, his district was actually, I believe, bluer in 2020. Yeah, he was in a D+4 district. Now he's in a D+3. He is a pretty powerful incumbent, but he's actually in danger of being knocked off by a progressive. The final tallies for the primary there aren't yet, but it looks like he's on track to lose, or at very least it's going to be a very close race. So in that case, this would be an open seat, and I would actually favor the Republicans to win that. So as of right now, for the sake of this video, I'm actually going to put this as a lean Republican flip, since a D+3 district in what's expected to be an R+6 environment is not really going to hold, especially when you have a non-incumbent. Again, it really does depend on the candidates, but I think this is definitely going to be a GOP pickup with the way things are going. Next, we have the districts of 6, which is an open district, and District 4. District 4, right off the bat, I think I'm going to put as lean Democrat. Again, the environment is going to be a bit tough, but this is an incumbent representative. I think he'll hold on. As of right now, again, this is May of 2022. Things could change. And then we go, of course, to the open seat, which is basically encompassing areas of Salem, which is Oregon's capital city, D+7. This is an open seat, so Republicans have a chance to flip this district as well, which would actually be crazy because Oregon would have a 3-3 delegation, even though they meticulously tried to gerrymander the state to prevent that. But anyway, in other years that aren't red years, though, that actually could end up benefiting them. You know, if we go to 2024, for instance, where Oregon is definitely going to vote probably bluer than it did in 2022, you might see maybe only the 5th and 2nd going red, or maybe only the 2nd and these other districts going back. So it really does depend how strong the incumbents are and what they're really running on. But when we take a look at the open 6th district, we'll take a look at the House races in Oregon and see who's running there. As of right now, we'll probably give, I'm going to X out of these because these are distracting me. We're gonna give this to the Democrats, I think, by a lean margin. We'll give it to Democrats by lean, I think. Moving on up north to the state of Washington, there's a number of districts I want to talk about here. First off, we have a safe red district, but I want to talk about the Republican primary there because you have a Republican, Newhouse, who actually voted to impeach Donald Trump. Dan Newhouse voted to impeach Donald Trump. He's currently in a race against Lauren Culp, who was the former Republican governor for nominee back in 2020. He actually got 43% of the vote in a state that I think Donald Trump only got 38. So he outperformed Trump pretty significantly. And in the head-to-head polling, Culp has a narrow lead. He's up by 1 point as of April, and one of the more recent polls as well has him up by 8. Now, Washington has a weird system because they basically have jungle primaries. So the top 2 candidates, regardless of party, will advance to the general election. So it's very possible, for instance, that if you have a super blue district like Washington's 1st or Washington's 9th, it's very likely that both choices will be 2 Democrats. But when you have Washington's 5th, for instance, Washington's 4th, it's very likely you could have 2 Republicans. So in the case of Dan Newhouse, it looks like we're on track to have 2 Republicans. But regardless, this seat is going to be safe Republican, so I'll fill it in as Republican for now. Whether or not Culp advances and Newhouse, or Newhouse and a Democrat, or Culp and a Democrat, it's still going to go red no matter what, especially given the environment. I mean, if we just look at the PVI of a district, it's R plus 25, so this district is not going to flip almost no matter what. Washington's 3rd is another example of a district with a incumbent who voted to impeach Donald Trump. That is Representative Bueller. We'll take a look at that race now because she is another candidate that is actually being propped up by the National Republicans, but she has a primary challenger in Joe Kent, who is running to her right. She's voted to impeach Donald Trump. She's also voted out of step a number of times with mainstream Republicans. So she was a prime target to be primaried from the right. So Joe Kent himself is a technical engineer. He's running to primary her. As of right now, the race ratings are all over the place, but the hypothetical polling right now has Joe Kent ahead and the Democrat ahead of Representative Bueller. And ultimately, I think she probably will lose her primary at this rate. Again, a lot of grassroots support has been thrown behind Kent. Him and the Democrat are likely to advance, and I think this seat ultimately will be a safe Republican seat given the environment. Now, Joe Kent is running to the right of the former representative of the seat. She won with 56% of the vote back in 2020, but given the environment we're expected to see this time around, I expect even if he wins the same amount, that's going to be a safe margin, so it doesn't really matter. Moving on to Washington's 8th district. This district is totally even. Kim Schreier, the Democrat occupying it, basically won in line with the national popular vote back in 2020, and her district's rating hasn't changed. She got 51.7 to 48.1. I think this makes her a prime target to be defeated in 2022. The environment, especially an environment that is expected to be R plus 6, a district that votes generally in line with the environment. She is an incumbent and that will help her, but ultimately I see her probably getting knocked off. I think this is easily at least a lean flip for the Republican Party. Now again, these ratings could change. We have a lot more time until the midterm elections, but given the way things are shaking up right now, that's the way that I see it. So moving on, now we only really have 2 more districts to cover for this House prediction. Both of these districts are technically likely blue. We have one that's D plus 10 and another one that's also D plus 10. So I think as of right now, both of these are going to be likely Democratic holds. Obviously, things might change in either of these districts. There could be one or even both that get a little bit more competitive in the lean margin. But I think in order to call a flip in either of these districts, you'd have to see a very interesting race dynamic kind of playing out. So anyway, that's really it all for the northwestern United States. We have 11 Republican districts and 10 Democratic districts. We'll be looking at the other regions of the U.S. throughout the next month or so stay tuned for those. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and as always, thank you again for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.